Hey guys, welcome back. Glad you can be here with me. Now today, doing things a little bit differently. All right. It's been a while since I did a video. But what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be working on the rear bearings, the rear wheel bearings of the car. For I would say maybe 2 years, I've been driving around with this incredibly loud and annoying humming coming from the rear section of the car. I knew what it was immediately, but I know how those things are. As soon as I was able, a few days after I first heard it, I tried to wiggle the wheels and all of that to try to find out what was going on, but it was too soon. So there was no play yet, because normally you hear the sound before you hear the you feel any wobbling or any wiggling going on. So I literally drove it like that for 2 years, and it drove fine, but the noise didn't get any louder, it didn't get any more pronounced, but it was there. But anywho, I eventually got the time. I bought the bits and pieces that I needed. Got some extra tools and so on. La 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 la. And I finally got the opportunity to get it done. And it didn't take long. I'll be honest with you. This is something that let me tell you the tools you need. You need a 14mm socket. You need a 17mm socket. You probably need maybe a spanner wrench, 14, 17. There's a 10mm bolt that you need to undo, and apart from taking off the wheels, that's it. Everything was pretty straightforward. I did need a 4-pound dead blow hammer. That's my tool of choice, because they're not loud. They don't send back all kinds of blows up into your elbow as you use them. So I bought a 4-pound dead blow hammer from Harbor Freight, and it was totally wonderful this morning. I finally got it done. It was pretty easy. So I did a video, and this is it. Okay, so thanks for joining me, guys. I'm just taking a little drive around the neighborhood here. So let's jump right into it and see if we can't get this bearing sorted out. I apologize, guys. I did not record the procedure for disassembling the caliper or the mounting support, but my plan is to do a video of the full brake servicing, and in that video I will show all of these steps. So until then, I apologize. Please bear with me. All right, here we have the 4 bolts that hold the hub assembly in place. These are 17mm bolts. Okay, I've already loosened them at this point, but I just did the video so that you could see. And then in the center, we have the 10mm bolt that holds the ABS sensor in place. Okay, again, I've already removed those, and I just did this up for the benefit of the viewers.
Okay, so here we have my 4-pound dead blow hammer going to work, and this tool was invaluable here. And the reason being, as I mentioned before, it softens the blow as you hit it. You know, you don't get this reverberation, you know, this kickback up into your wrist and into your elbows. It's not as loud as a ball peen or, you know, or a brass hammer. And you know, it's coated in plastic, so it doesn't make as much noise, and of course it doesn't damage the surfaces. You know, it doesn't cause scratching and that sort of thing. And here we have the assembly removed, and this is the backing plate. And here I'm showing you that, you know, the holes are aligned in a particular way, and the backing plate will only go in one way. Okay, so you can't really mess it up. The holes are set in a way where they are in line. Now if you look, you'll see the outline of the hub assembly on the backing plate. It will only fit one way, so very little chance of messing up there. So here, what we're doing, this is the new hub assembly, and what we want to do at this point is to match up the new one with the old one. You know, we want to make sure that the two main areas are identical, i.e. this is the lug side. We'll make sure the lug pattern and the lug sizes are the same, and then, you know, we want to rotate it to the inner section where the ABS sensor and the suspension mounting pattern is. We want to make sure that those are also identical. Here what I'm doing is I'm just applying a light film of lubricant just so that the hub assembly can go into place a little bit easier. I'm now demonstrating the dust cap for the ABS sensor, and we want to keep that in place because we don't want to get any dust or contaminants into it as we install.
Morning.
So here I have the new assembly, and what I'll be demonstrating is that the ABS sensor faces up in the correct install position. Now again, it will only bolt in place in one way, okay, and we have it correctly there. And what we need to be aware of is that this is a Moog branded sensor, or assembly rather, and in the correct position the Moog logo will actually be upside down. So don't worry about it. The ABS sensor should be on the up side of the unit, the assembly, and again it will only go in one way. And here what I'm doing, I'm just putting a light film of lubricant on the bolts, these 17mm bolts, simply because, you know, we don't want to strain the metal. If we can get it to slide in pretty easily, we're going to take that option. Here we'll be torquing the 17mm bolts of the hub assembly to between 60 and 72 pound-feet. Here we're just listening to the sound made by the old and then the new hub assembly, and as we can tell, the old one is pretty noisy. Okay, so here we're putting the rotor back in place. There's no designated way for it to go back in. There are no little, none of those little screws that keep them in place. That's the case on the front ones, but we'll get to that in due time. So here we're putting the mounting support for the caliper system in place, and it's pretty straightforward how this goes in place. It uses two 14mm bolts towards the rear side, and again, I'll be showing you guys in a proper video of the brake maintenance procedure. Again, just putting a light film of oil, of a lubricant really, on the bolts. Oops, I seem to have lost some of the hardware for the brake pad mounting. That's the little hardware that gives that springing action, as well as provides a warning, a low brake pad warning. These pop right back in place. Sometimes, you know, as you work and they pop out, you just pop them back in place. Now here's where we're torquing the mounting support bracket bolts in place. Okay, these are 14mm, and the shop manual calls for between 38 and 48 pound-feet of torque. So now I'm demonstrating how to reinstall those hardware pieces, the brake low warning devices. They go in pretty much one way, in an upside down T fashion, and you can't miss it. It'll once you have it in that upside down T position, it'll go right in. You know, they're identical, both. They'll fit on either side. It doesn't really matter. So the brake pad is very easy to go in place. I've seen much worse. You kind of put the lower part of the pad in, and then you just roll it into the support brackets, you know, the tab side, and just kind of roll it in, and it's pretty easy. Here, I was struggling a little bit with it, simply because the rotor was moving back and forth. So, you know, as I put the rear pad in, everything goes to pieces, because the rotor was kind of moving back and forth, and I was trying to kind of hold it, and you know, so yeah, nothing wrong. Just everything pops right back into place. No harm done. So here we have the caliper assembly, and it will go in place very easily as long as you're not changing the brake pads. If you're using new brake pads, then the piston has to be compressed. Now, this piston is of the newer type, where you can't use the usual C-clamp method to compress them. You have to have a special tool to actually rotate the piston into its inward position. Now, in this case, this car, the parking brake cable goes straight into the caliper, unlike other vehicles where you might have a separate drum brake assembly towards the hub. This isn't like that. I believe the CX-9 might be that way, but the Mazda6 has the cable right in the caliper. So that requires a special tool. I do not have that tool at the moment, so when I get that in place, I will make another video. Alright, so here now, I'm running the bolts in place. Now, if you notice, the bolts for the caliper is actually a 40mm, which is what I have in my right hand. In my left hand is a 17mm, which I'm using to hold the pin in place. Okay, the pin will rotate if you know, it tends to rotate if you try to run the 40mm in place. So the 17mm is there, you see it, just to hold the pin in place so it doesn't rotate. Okay, now we're going to be torquing the caliper bolts, these 40mm bolts, to between 17 and 22 pound-feet. So here we are, guys, on the last stretch, and here I am removing the dust cap from the ABS sensor towards the inner side of the assembly. Okay, now this is a procedure you do not want to forget, okay, because otherwise your ABS will not work. Okay, but I purposely left it out of, left it disconnected, left the dust cover in place, because, I was back there with torque wrenches and all kinds of things, and I didn't want to get anything snagged or damaged. Okay, so interesting thing here is that I was actually using the screen on the camera to do this because I couldn't see what I was doing, so I just kind of positioned everything there, and it really worked out pretty well. So this is a 10mm bolt. The shop manual calls for a torque of 71 to 88 inch-pounds. I'm going to say this again, 71 to 88 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds, inch-pounds of torque. Well, guys, that basically brings us to the end of the video. It was a real pleasure working on it this time. I'm really impressed with how easy Mazda makes this whole procedure. Lots of the bolts are just really, really accessible. So hey, listen, guys, by all means, if you have a comment or a suggestion, there's something you want to see me work on, drop me a comment in the comment section below, and like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.